This is the presentation of the Trajectory and Traits of Diviners, a qualitative study about transdisciplinarity in a software study. This is the work of Elias, Harmuch, Neto, me, Fabio, Sheila dos Santos, Reinehr, and Andreia Malucelli. We are from the Software Engineering Research Group from the Graduate Program in Informatics, PPGIA, from PUC-PR, Curitiba, south of Brazil. Let me start with the contemporary situation in software engineering that requires multidisciplinary teams organized in different roles to collaborate. There are many different roles, but we are just simplifying those different roles into complementary opposite roles. The designer from one side, who looks for more aesthetics and functional, user-friendly interfaces, and developers who look for functional systems and efficiency and other attributes of those systems that needs to be developed to provide the experiences for the users. These two different roles have different priorities, and they have a hard time sometimes to collaborate and develop an integrated project. To bridge the gap between these two roles, some students and also professionals in the field, they're pursuing a double background in design and development, something which is being called a diviner. The diviner is supposed to collaborate with developers and designers because that person can understand both perspectives, since it has double background, or maybe triple background, maybe different backgrounds that are much beyond design and development. Software engineering has been mostly characterized as a multidisciplinarity endeavor, yet the case of diviners introduces the question of crossing disciplines to software engineering. Crossing disciplines is the topic of transdisciplinarity, which is an approach to learning and development that recognizes the existence of knowledge beyond and across academic disciplines. This is something broader than multidisciplinarity because sometimes knowledge can be found even outside of disciplines, and a person can have multiple disciplines in her own background. So it's better to characterize this as transdisciplinarity. We have researched transdisciplinarity in the context of a software development studio. We run a qualitative research method to study the traits and the trajectory of diviners who are students in a software studio program that aims at training this particular profile. The trajectories were gathered through oral history interview, a qualitative method that relies a lot on self-reporting. The trajectories were reconstructed and analyzed by following some steps of the grounded theory method. We used Atlas TI as our qualitative data analysis software, so we transcribed all the oral history interviews and segmented the text by quotations. These quotations were coded, and after we coded all the quotations and found some patterns, we started the open coding, which was coding the codes that were already there. After we finished coding, we also made some legal serious play models to make sense of these codes and find larger patterns of behaviors and stories, trying to figure out which are the common trajectories between these people that were interviewed. So the legal serious play model was some kind of a sketch of something that we have done later on using Atlas TI in a much more rigorous way. In the axial coding phase, the third phase, where we have tried to make sense in a more structured way the different codes and find and define the pattern based on the data analysis. So we formed some code networks. In this case, you see how the legal serious play model helped us to feed and support further evidence finding in the Atlas TI environment. Let me switch to the results and the supporting evidence that we have picked up as examples here. On the left side, you see the code network for the trajectories, the common trajectories of the diviners. You have to read from bottom up. So first, the diviners, the person who is interested in some different things, he tries or she tries to know something that she doesn't know, then she acquires some interest for specific fields or specific topics. Then she tries to get first experience working or studying with those topics. Then it comes some estrangement and questioning the knowledge that that person has, the limitations, then understanding different roles that are involved with these different topics and develop empathy for users and for other people that have these different roles. Then with all these different experiences that the person has gone through, the person becomes bold in their own feelings and thoughts about the field of work in inquiry. Then this generates new interests and sometimes a change in their career. Here you see on the right side an example of a quotation that support the first experience code, which is about a student who studied cartographic engineering because that student had the experience derived from their family relationships. And the other quotation is about a student telling that once she was a kid, she was used to take apart toys and look how they worked and try to make new toys by putting together parts of these different toys. This is something that we saw as a strong pattern among all the participants, the relationship with their toys. We had many other codes and quotations. These are just some examples for you to understand how we proceeded from the first phase towards the third phase of our qualitative data analysis. Here you see another code network model we have compiled about the characteristics of the individual, the traits. So diviners are basically curious people, self-taught, creative, and communicators. And why they are curious? Well, here you see an example of how curiosity has been growing up and developing this person. That person was playing a lot of games, and then she wanted to understand what was going on behind the games, she got hooked to interact so many hours of that day, of her day. In another person's situation, you see in this quotation that the person is concerned about a colleague who is earning less than should earn in their payments, and then that diviner person wants to tell the other, and that's a difficult communication to do, but that person feels it's important. So there's this annoying part that you have to come up with and tell the person that you understand what's going on and why that person is not earning as much as she should deserve, and then perhaps give some hints on how to position herself better in the work situation. So these are some examples of some axial coding derived from the quotations, and I'm not going to go into the details of how many other different situations we have analyzed in this study. I would just wrap up with the conclusions that the diviner trajectory and the traits draws attention to the overlooked issue of transdisciplinarity in software engineering. Software Development Studio, the place where these students were found and identified, this program seems to be suited for training students that like to cross the boundaries between design and development. Well, this is actually the major aim of this specific program. However, software engineering education could do more than create software development studios to encourage transdisciplinarity. However, we don't know what can be done. Future studies could look into that. So these are the references that I mentioned in my presentation, and of course you can check more in the full paper. And if you want to contact the first author of this paper, then you should go to Elias. Thank you very much, and I hope to find you during the conference. Bye-bye.